Welcome to the Ex Good Girl podcast, the place where people pleasers, perfectionists, and overgivers come to unlearn the good girl rules that you thought were making you good, but now you can see are actually just keeping you small. If you've spent your life being unable to say no, putting everyone else's needs and feelings above your own, constantly seeking external approval, or avoiding conflict to make others feel comfortable, if guilt and resentment feel like a constant weight in your life, it is time to learn to knock that shit off. Every episode, we dive into the stories, skills, and strategies that you need to stop shrinking, start speaking up, and to live a life that is authentically and unapologetically yours, while also deepening the connection and vulnerability in the relationships that matter to you. I'm glad you're here. Let's jump in. We get to spend some time in this episode with one of my most favorite people. Alyssya, I'm so glad you're here. Would you please introduce yourself to the audience?
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Sarah. My name is Allyssya Gossett. I am a coach and podcast host of The Highly Sensitive Woman, and I do that work because I too am a highly sensitive woman, and that sensitivity has permeated my entire life and how I move through the world. And so I'm just thrilled to be here to talk about that and speak to other highly sensitive women.
I have been really looking forward to this conversation because I've shared with you that I had some sensitivity that I had no idea was sensitivity. And we can talk a little bit more about, the particulars of kind of how I discovered that. But before we do, what what is your definition of someone who is highly sensitive, or the markers, or just kind of what would somebody be looking for if they wanted to know if they're sensitive?
My go-to definition of that for when people ask me, they're in my life and they're like, what does it mean that you're a highly sensitive woman? It's all of my senses are kind of on high alert at all times. And I tend to feel more emotions than the average person. And I feel those emotions deeper and stronger than the average person.
Okay. So more emotion, kind of at a deeper or higher level, and you are picking up on maybe more sound, noise, more in your visual field, more all of your senses then seem like they're turned up. Does that
Yeah.
feel right?
Yes.
Okay. When I was trying to figure out, like, what is wrong with me, to me, what felt the most overloading was noise. It was like all of the sudden, and I had 5 kids. So I still have 5 kids, I guess I should say. They're all still my kids. But when they were all home and it was noisy, and it just seemed fine. But then it was like one day a switch flipped, and I just felt like the level of noise all the time was way too much. And so I started doing some digging and looking into it, and I couldn't really find anything that said, like, yeah, you might be highly sensitive, because what I was reading was mostly about, like, do food textures bother you? Is there scratchy fabrics that you don't like to wear, or tags, or like tight clothing? And I thought, no, 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 I I don't really have any of that. And so looking at myself as someone who was sensitive just based on the clue of noise, I didn't really make that connection. Do you find that that is common, that we can be really sensitive in maybe one primary way that kind of takes over and not in other ways? Does that question make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. And yes, I would say that there is most definitely a spectrum and a range. I know when I took like the official Are You a Highly Sensitive Person quiz, I don't remember what the total score is that you can get, but let's pretend it's 20. I got a 19. Like there was no doubt
Yeah.
whatsoever that I'm a highly sensitive person, and I guess tracked in every area. But for sure, some people might not be as sensitive in some of their senses as others. Even as a highly sensitive person, my fragrance sensitivity, for example, is extremely high, and I have some friends who are highly sensitive women, some clients, and that one isn't necessarily as heightened for them. I also notice that you mentioned fabrics. There are times when I can wear certain clothes that are in my closet, and there are other times when my nervous system is a little more heightened, and I'm like, I cannot wear this today. It's too scratchy. And
Yeah.
so, even within a person on a given day or a season that they are in their life, they might find that their senses are more or less heightened because maybe some others are a little more heightened at the time.
So I love that explanation, and I find that that is, true for me as well. And I think, you named I think the most important part, which is, where is my nervous system? And if it feels fairly regulated, if it feels fairly like I have a good connection to myself, then I do tend, that's like the day I go to Costco, where it just feels like overwhelming stimulation. I still put my Apple AirPods in and I put them on noise cancellation and I don't make eye contact with anybody, but those are the Costco days for me. But then there are other days where it already feels like there is such a load. I'm either stressed or I'm tired or I just feel extra worried. And so, yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense for me. Why would it matter for someone listening to know if they are sensitive or not?
Oh goodness, there are so many reasons. One, and this was a huge one for me, is in the United States in particular, we don't really celebrate the highly sensitive people. We celebrate the people who go through the world and break rules and um, kind of are outspoken and pushing boundaries and those types of things. And when someone is, I don't know, watching a movie and they get emotional and tear up, we're like, oh, don't be so sensitive, right? Like, we're just not celebrated in the United States. And it's sort of viewed as a negative thing. So, knowing that you are a highly sensitive person can be helpful in that it can give words to what you are experiencing, and it can help you not feel so alone and so broken because you recognize that it's not just you and that you aren't this weird outlier or, like you have said, super special, extra broken, right? Um, that there are lots of people like you, and we just happen to live in the United States, in a country that doesn't really celebrate that type of person. It also shows up in the way that you interact with people and your relationships because your nervous system just often cannot manage the conflict that can come with not being a people pleaser and not just agreeing to whatever the circumstances may be or um, whatever's being presented to you. And so your nervous system is kind of always on high alert. And what you end up doing in conjunction with your senses being stimulated and then trying to avoid conflict, a lot of times you withdraw. And so you don't have those relationships that you so desperately crave because as a highly sensitive person, you're not really super interested in surface level conversations. You want to get to the really good stuff, but there's so many barriers that come from all this messaging and stimulation and people pleasing that it gets in the way of those relationships. And that just contributes more to the feeling like you're broken and isolating, and it just becomes this perpetual cycle.
I love that explanation because I think, well, I'm actually remembering I have a close friend, and there was a book that came out several years ago now. It's called Quiet. Are you familiar with it? It's
Yes.
about being an introvert in a world built for extroverts, right? Extrovertism is celebrated and rewarded and kind of held up as the way we should be, the way to be successful, the way to make friends and influence people, and the way to get the best jobs and have the best relationships. And she read this book, and I remember her telling me about it with tears in her eyes, like, I identify with, I'm an introvert. And she had, the name, and she's like, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm just moving through a world that is not made for me. And I imagine there's a lot of overlap between introverts and sensitive people. And to move through the world with the constant feedback that there is something wrong with you, you're too emotional, you're too quiet, you're too withdrawn, you're too, fill in the blank, only makes sensitive people withdraw more, because it's not safe to be constantly trying to put yourself out there if you're just getting slapped on the hand or told that you're doing it wrong. And so to have a name for it, to have a kind of framework for, this is this is how I am, and it's okay. And it's not even just okay, it's good, it's perfectly valid, right? There, it doesn't need to be explained, it doesn't need to be proven as valid. It is valid just because it is your experience. That must be really important for people to have.
Yes. And highly sensitive people make up about 20% of the population. And of those, about 70% of us are introverts. And interestingly enough, I always identified strictly as an introvert as I was going through life. And then in discovering being a highly sensitive person and actually having words and um, definitions to it and learning how to manage it better and have skills to regulate my nervous system and to have those difficult conversations, I have noticed that I've shifted more into an ambivert, and there are definitely times where being around people does energize me. And so it's just interesting to me that maybe we truly are an introvert, but maybe some of it just comes because we've gotten all of that messaging and we don't quite know how to deal with it. That we could get energized by being around people and we could be capable of more. We just aren't quite there yet.
Yeah. The other thing that kind of comes to mind, my youngest son, whenever he was overwhelmed when he was young, he would just burst into tears. And he would just sit down on the floor and just burst into tears. And there was no moving him until he was ready, until he had gotten it all out. And I remember I had a friend over, and she didn't really scold him directly, but she said, "Oh yeah, that one cries a lot, doesn't he? You're gonna have to, like," how did she say it, kind of like work that out of him. And I remember just thinking, I don't even know how I would. Like, this is just like, what am I going to do? Punish him when he's already upset? He's already. And so, what I ended up doing was kind of redesigning how I interacted with him differently than my other kids who didn't have that same reaction to overwhelm. And I didn't know that that was I mean, he might be highly sensitive. I guess I shouldn't just assume just by that one trait, but the other, I think, big plus in learning this about yourself is that you can design your life to work with those sensitivities and not always be trying to overcome them as if there's something wrong with you. Because when he would get upset, I would just kind of stop everything and sit with him and rub his back. And I would say, "Do you want me to stay here or go away and come back?" And I would let him decide. And so we kind of redesigned how we interacted based on that trait of his. And I would think it would be really important for people to know this about themselves so that they can do some of that for themselves and make their life easier.
Yes. And I say all the time, all emotions come out of me in tears. And a very typical response to that from the other person is, "Oh, don't cry." And I very politely now have the words to say, "It's okay that I'm crying." Or something that I learned from you is to proactively, when the tears start to fall, say, "You'll notice that I'm crying. It's because I care so much." And by allowing myself the freedom to cry when I need to, I notice I don't actually cry as much, which is kind of interesting. And even when I do cry, I a lot of times have more control over the tears. It's more of like a slow stream than a full-on sob, although a full-on sob definitely has its place and can be
Oh,
very
yeah.
cathartic for sure. But I'm able to, because I'm not trying to shove the tears down and I'm not shaming myself internally for crying and I'm not allowing the other person to shame me either. I'm able to articulate what emotion I'm feeling. I'm able to find the words a little more readily in the moment. And yes, to your point, that has been life changing for me because that was such a big thing. Oh, don't let them see me cry, regardless of what emotion I was feeling. And I still get pretty angry if I'm crying because I'm angry.
Yeah. Yes.
Um, but I will then say that I'm angry and I'm crying, and now I'm angry because I'm crying, but I'm angry and this is why I'm angry. And before I couldn't put words to it because I was just so embarrassed that I was crying that
Yeah.
kind of overrode all of the other emotions that I was feeling.
Okay. I love that what you just shared, because what I heard was you're not only advocating for your needs, I need to cry and I need to let this out. You're understanding why it happens to you and you're able to explain it, and you're able to recognize it as something that is good about you. It's a strength that you're able to feel this way. And you just have a better understanding of why you need things that other people might not. Um, in addition to, quiet and downtime, but like to emote, to let this out, and you're able to stop other people from kind of dumping their expectations or their discomfort on you when they say, oh, don't cry, it's okay, because their issues are their issues and their discomfort is theirs to deal with. And it just seems like you're able to have much more of your own kind of grounded, connected experience, which is what I wonder if that's kind of behind the way that you own it so beautifully. And you're like, this is what I need. I need to cry. I need to let this out. And if you're uncomfortable with it, that's yours to deal with. That's not mine.
Yes, and it took me a very long time to get there, and it has certainly ebbed and flowed. But now I do see all of the things that come with it, the empathy and the compassion that I'm able to have for other people. For so long, I saw that as a bad thing, and now I really celebrate it and I recognize that it's kind of a package deal, right? Like I can't turn off my sensitivities to the extent that I would sometimes very much like to
Yeah.
without turning off some of those other traits that really make me who I am and allow me to be the kind of friend and partner and coach that I am. And I don't want to turn it off now.
Isn't that amazing to have really come into your own, yourself, who you are, what you offer, and to really appreciate like the whole ecosystem of emotions and emotional intelligence that you are. I think that's so incredible that you are able to have that, that you're able to help your clients develop that, because we do tend to want like the quote unquote good things about our personality without understanding the other parts of our personalities or our upbringing or our experiences that those are attached to. Like I couldn't be, I'm speaking as if I were you. I couldn't be Alyssya, the person who feels deeply and loves deeply and connects deeply without this sensitivity.
Yes. And I think when I finally understood that, that was when things really started to change. And I want to be clear that there are still days where it's hard. And there are still
Yes.
days when I wish I could flip the switch and turn it off. But as a whole, yeah, I just am finally comfortable in my own skin and don't see myself as being broken or like I was made wrong.
Yeah. If you're comfortable, answering this next question with personal experience, great. If you want to talk about client experience, whatever feels most relevant. But I'm really interested in what obstacles are in the way for someone who is highly sensitive to really understand and honor that about themselves? Like, why is it so hard to come to that place where you feel like I'm a valid person with a valid experience that matters just as much as everybody else?
I think it's hard because it has been ingrained in us from the very beginning in our day-to-day lives. Sometimes it's from the adults, sometimes it's from our peers. And then society as a whole has just been giving us that messaging over and over and over again. And so it is really hard to undo that programming and really hard to kind of rewire those very deeply worn grooves in our brains that our way is wrong and we should be different. And that process is bumpy. When you're trying to kind of rewire the thought patterns and to understand that your nervous system and how it's responding is not wrong, it's just really, really hard to do. And it takes time and sometimes having the patience to ride the wave and knowing that there won't be one day where the switch flips and you're like, oh my goodness, this is the best thing ever. And I love everything about myself, and that you never revert back and that you never have those low points. And I can speak for myself that when those low points come, it used to be very devastating. When those low points would come again, I'd be like, oh, I thought I had fixed it. I thought I was never going to have to revisit this again. I thought I was past it. At this age in my life, I should be fill in the blank, right? And I think when I began to understand that there will be times where I'll be in that low spot again and that it will be hard again, allows me to not compound it with the shame and blame of here you are again and see, here's some more evidence of why. And I see this coming up with my clients too, and we have to work through the ebb and the flow and understanding that that's totally normal. And that each time that we might go kind of into that low place, we don't stay there as long. Maybe we don't go as deep. And we're able to get to a place of accepting this is how I'm wired and this is who I am. And we're able to get to that place much sooner. And the time in between the kind of falling into the valley and kind of bouncing back up to the acceptance is much shorter.
Yeah, that is so, I see so much overlap there. I obviously talk a lot about good girl programming, right? Good girl rules. And I think about the way that our upbringing just kind of really sets up what is good, what is bad, what is rewarded, what is punished. And I was really rewarded for production, like doing stuff, like get it done, get it done, get it done, get it done. There's always more, there's always more. And the more you can do, the better, which I think had me just overriding a lot of my fatigue, a lot of my need to rest, my desire for play, right? When you're working all, so hard, you just, you look at people around you playing and you get mad because they're like wasting time when work could be getting done. And so I think back to like the particular way that I was programmed to not pay attention to any sensitivity, because really it's sensitivity that gets in the way of like the big capitalist machine, that we're all just cogs in, or it feels like that. And so when we look at like people pleasing in particular, this kind of way that we live out those good girl rules, where do you see sensitivity and people pleasing kind of overlapping? What's the Venn diagram look like there?
I think one of the biggest ones is because we are so sensitive to everything that's going on around us, we very quickly pick up on a shift in someone else's mood, a shift in the emotions of the room. And because of that, our bodies are like, uh-oh. And so then we immediately kind of go into what did I do wrong and what do I need to fix? And so we just very, very seamlessly slide right into people pleasing and assume that that shift is a result of something we did or did not do. And so we're going to do whatever we can to correct it. And it may or may not have anything to do with us, but that's where I see probably the biggest overlap is because we can pick up on those subtle differences so, so easily. We're just real quick to shift into people pleasing.
Yeah, is there kind of the default? Well, I know there is in like good girl rules where you automatically think when something is off, it's my fault or I have to fix it. Does that feel similar for people who are highly sensitive? Does it feel turned up? Is it a higher feeling of threat or needing to fix this or it's my fault?
I think there's definitely some of that. And then there's also because there's so much empathy and compassion, like we almost want to like take it on so that the other person isn't feeling whatever it is that they
Yeah,
are feeling
yeah,
in this very unhealthy way for sure.
yeah.
And it's not even conscious much of the time, especially if you've never had words to it. But for sure, like we want to help. And so it's the combination of I want to fix it and I don't want there to be anything wrong. And then at the same time, like I have so much compassion and empathy for you. Like I just want to help you. And so I'm going to take it on for you.
Okay, that's so interesting. That does, yeah, that kind of double-edged way in which your sensitivity shows up to try to make things better. I feel like there must also be a lot of masking going on, pretending, because if someone has sensitivities that they don't either know where they come from or they can't appreciate them as a valuable part of themselves and they're being told this is bad, this is wrong, you shouldn't be this way, then I'm guessing that there is a lot of pretending or performing that's happening. Does that feel right as well?
Oh, for sure. Yes. And sometimes we can do that better than others. There are times where we can perform or we can pretend like everything's okay. And people around us have no idea. And I know that I sort of wore that as a badge of honor for a lot of years. Many, many years ago, had a pretty significant kind of breakdown, and my nervous system had reached its limit, and I had to take some time off of work and really get the care that I needed. And I remember everyone around me being like, we had no idea. And I was so proud of myself that they had no idea how much I was suffering behind closed doors. And we're just very, very good at it because we have learned as we're going through life, you know, that the sensitivity isn't necessarily a good thing. And so you've got to keep that hidden. And so you become kind of a natural performer. And then it's interesting now because like I don't want to perform. I want people to see the raw, real me, not to an inappropriate level by any means. Certainly there are things that I keep private, but because I want this to become such a norm in people's lives and for them to accept highly sensitive people, like I like pulled the mask down and I want people to see it and really celebrate it and just show that there are different ways to be in the world. And I almost can't put it up, even when I feel like it would probably be very appropriate. I almost just can't do it anymore.
That feel for you to be able to live that way? I mean, going from having a breakdown and being proud that your coworkers and friends didn't know how much you were suffering to where you are now of like, I actually can't put that mask or that I can't do that performing anymore. What is that like for you?
It's kind of exhilarating and very freeing. And I finally feel like I'm living life and not just existing and kind of going through the motions.
Yeah. And you know what? That is what women want, right? They just want to be able to find out, who am I really? What do I really want to do with my one wild, precious life, with the, the time that I have? And I love that you feel that so deeply. And I love that that's what you are able to help your clients achieve, because that journey from what if there's something wrong with me? I think there is something wrong with me, that like I'm extra special, super broken, to I am living the life that I want to be living. And if other people have thoughts about it, that's theirs to deal with, not mine, is so joyful. And it's also hard, right? There's also things to overcome and feel, but the joy on your face and the joy that I have seen you experience, the joy that I have experienced as I have, kind of come home to that real version of myself. Um, there's there's nothing like it.
There isn't. And, you mentioned time. Like it's so, so precious. And I feel like I lost so much time in my 20s and my 30s that I don't want to waste time anymore pretending. And um, it's really cool to see my clients doing the same. And I just want to say that, and this has come up for me, it's come up for my clients, like I should be here by a certain point. And so I just want to say that, yes, I mean, I was fortunate enough to finally start shifting in my 40s. Some people are lucky enough that they're recognizing that they're highly sensitive women in their 20s, and some are maybe in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and it is never too late to finally have words to what it means to be a highly sensitive person, and to really start to celebrate that so that you can live however much time, because none of us are guaranteed tomorrow, regardless of our age, right? So, however much time that you can be living it the way that you want to be living it.
So if someone is curious about their own sensitivities, right? I think we all kind of notice things about ourselves and we're like, huh, is that a thing or is that not a thing? Maybe it's a thing, maybe it's not. Either way, in terms of the sensitivity conversation that we're having, where would you suggest that they either start learning more about being a highly sensitive person? And then once they discover that perhaps they are, how would they begin to take better care of that part of them or honor that part of them? What would you tell them?
And there is a website, The Highly Sensitive Person. There's a book. I took a quiz, and that's how I first discovered it. And I love this work so much. I started a podcast, The Highly Sensitive Woman, and so I'm talking about all of these things and giving, tips for how to protect your nervous system and regulate it and learn how to manage your senses as you are trying new activities and those types of things. And I think the first thing is understanding that you are not alone. They're 20% of the entire population, so millions of people are just like you, and it is to be celebrated the way that you are wired.
So, understanding how to regulate and protect their nervous system seems to be really central to this. Why is it such a central part of having a different experience as a highly sensitive person?
Because when your nervous system is so dysregulated, you don't want to do the things, right? Like when your nervous system is heightened, kind of like you were saying, you don't go to Costco on certain days, right? There are certain things that you don't want to do. And so you're missing out. There are certain conversations that you don't want to have. And so you're not able to necessarily build the relationships or the type of relationships that you want to have. You find yourself doing a lot of things that you don't want to do, or not doing a lot of things that you do want to do. You're spending a lot of time ruminating about conversations that you did have. And so the dysregulated nervous system kind of gets in the way of pretty much everything. And so learning how to regulate and manage your nervous system in a way that honors your sensitivity and allows you to have the conversations that you want to have and do the things that you want to do and not do the things that you don't want to do is critical.
So, if someone was interested in finding out more about how you teach that and working with you, where would they go to find that out?
Well, they can listen to the Highly Sensitive Woman podcast. I am also on Instagram at Life Coach Alyssya, and you can send me a message and we could have a conversation. info@alyssya.coach, and we can just see if we would be a good fit to work together.
Anyone who got to work with you would just be so lucky, because you are not only just a fantastic human, but such a good coach. I have had the chance to work with you personally. And so yes, if that is interesting to you, I would really highly recommend that people do that. As we wrap up the conversation, is there anything else that you either wanted to say that you didn't get a chance to, or just want to make sure we put into words?
I think if you are listening and you suspect that you are a highly sensitive person, I would highly encourage you to explore that further and get a better understanding, because living with that mask on and trying to pretend like your way is bad is really getting in the way of an incredible gift that you have and truly some superpowers. And I want you to be able to tap into those superpowers that are your sensitivity and use them in the most incredible way.
I love that. I'm thinking back to just honoring the fact that, this one part of me, it really does seem to be, for me, my sensitivity is mostly around noise and big crowds of people. And I can really just confidently say that's a no for me. And to really feel like that is deeply honoring of myself and of my capacity, without saying that it should be different. I should want to go do that. I should be able to handle that. I just don't do that anymore. I find that the experience that I am able to have when I honor that part of myself is actually fun for me, is actually rejuvenating, is actually pleasurable. And I just don't have to pretend anymore, isn't that what we all really, really want, to stop pretending and performing?
Yes, and I can relate to so much of that. I'm able to enjoy things that I used to say I would never be able to enjoy because of my sensitivity, and it's because I've learned to embrace it and work with it instead of fighting against it, that allows me to do so much more than I ever thought that I was capable of doing. And I'm seeing that with my clients too, and it's just so good.
It is just so good. Yes. Well, thank you, Alyssya. I hope that this conversation, I wish I could have had this conversation with someone, or listened to it, years ago, because I think it would have just given me a framework for something that I just had no idea. I'm like, what is wrong with me? Why is this thing so hard for me? So I'm really grateful that you would take the time to have this conversation.
Thank you so much for having me, Sarah. Truly a pleasure anytime I get to chat with you.
Hey, thanks for listening. If this podcast has been helpful to you, I would really appreciate it if you would give me a 5-star rating in whatever platform you listen to your podcasts. And if you go to my website, sarahfisk.coach, you can sign up there to receive my emails. Right now, I'm taking private one-to-one clients who want my help speeding up this work in their own lives. I really hope to provide a lot of free information on my website and in my podcast for people to do this work on their own. But if you're interested in having a coach like me to help you implement these things faster, to find the blind spots and obstacles that you're not aware of, go to my website and sign up for a consult. That's a time when you and I can get on Zoom and talk about the particulars of your situation, and I can show you how I could be helpful. The second thing you can do on my website is sign up for a freebie that I have called Difficult Conversations. Having a conversation that seems like it's going to be hard or difficult is one of the things that people pleasers struggle with. And so I've created a whole guide for you to be able to do that with some more confidence. That will also get you signed up for information about my group program, Stop People Pleasing. It's a group coaching program where you join a community of women just like you who are struggling to overcome perfectionating and people pleasing, and we do it together in a group. It's a really amazing opportunity to not just learn from your own experience, but just to see how similar you are to so many other women out there. The healing and the challenging and the laughing and the growth that happens in that beautiful community of women is really amazing. And if it's interesting to you, I would love for you to know about it.